There is a profound irony unfolding in the Mediterranean right now. Washington is demanding that Greece evict a tenant that Washington itself refused to house when it was homeless. The United States has explicitly pressured the Greek government to remove China COSCO shipping from the port of Piraeus. Senior officials from the State Department have issued warnings about the dangers of Chinese influence in European infrastructure. They argue that it is unsafe for a NATO member to hand over the keys to its most strategic maritime gateway to a systemic rival. But the response from Athens was not the compliance Washington expected. Instead, Greece shattered the illusion of Western diplomatic supremacy with a brutal reality check. The Greek government reminded the world of a history many in the West would prefer to forget. They said, quite plainly, that during their darkest hour, it was China that held the line when everyone else walked away. They stated, "We will absolutely not drive away the partners who helped us when our economy was burning." This creates a fascinating geopolitical paradox. Why is the United States so terrified of a commercial port in southern Europe? The answer is not just about ships. To understand the panic in Washington, you have to look beyond the docks. You have to look at the railway tracks heading north. This is the story of the Piraeus checkmate. It is the story of how China built a steel corridor into the soft underbelly of Europe, while the West was busy lecturing Greece on austerity. Let's go back to 2009 to understand the magnitude of the shift. The financial crisis had erupted with volcanic force. Greece's fiscal system had collapsed, and the national debt was spiraling out of control. The European Union's solution was a brutal regime of austerity. At that time, the Piraeus Port Authority was a state-owned disaster. It was a symbol of everything wrong with the Greek economy. Equipment was rusting. Strikes were so frequent that shipping companies stopped putting Piraeus on their schedules. Cargo piled up on the docks with no one to unload it. Within the shipping industry, there was a common saying, "Avoid Piraeus unless you have absolutely no choice." The port's annual throughput had withered to just over 700,000 TEUs. For context, rival ports like Valencia and Genoa were moving millions. Piraeus was dying. The machinery was ancient. The yard was chaotic. And there was almost no digital tracking system. They couldn't even guarantee lighting for night shifts. Unloading a ship took 3 days longer than in northern European ports. For a logistics manager, a 3-day delay is an unacceptable loss of margin. Under pressure from the Troika, the EU, ECB, and IMF, Greece was forced to sell its state assets. They put Piraeus on the market. This is the moment the Western narrative collapses. In 2009, nobody in the West wanted it. No American operator made an offer. No European shipping giant stepped up. They looked at the debt, the unions, and the rust, and they walked away. It seemed like a hopeless money pit. It was only then that China appeared. While the West saw a liability, Beijing saw a geographic destiny. A subsidiary of China COSCO Shipping Group stepped into the vacuum. They took over a 35-year concession for the container terminals. The headline figure often cited is nearly $1 billion, but the reality was a strategic long-term commitment. By 2016, COSCO would acquire a majority 51% stake in the Port Authority itself. This was not charity. This was the beginning of one of the most aggressive infrastructure turnarounds in maritime history. After China took over, the transformation was total. The Chinese team didn't just patch the holes. They rebuilt the foundation. They deepened the water draft to 18 meters. This is a critical technical detail. 18 meters means the port can accommodate the new generation of ultra-large container vessels. These giants carry 24,000 containers at a time. Before the upgrade, these ships had to sail past Greece to Rotterdam. Now, they could dock in Athens. The rusted equipment was scrapped. In its place, COSCO installed Super Post Panamax cranes, some of the largest in the world. They built automated yards and logistics centers. They implemented a state-of-the-art AI system to plan operations, reducing waiting times to 0. For the first time in decades, Piraeus functioned like a modern node in the global supply chain. The results were instantaneous. Major shipping alliances switched their hubs to Piraeus. By 2020, the port's throughput skyrocketed from 700,000 to 5.7 million TEUs. It overtook Valencia and Hamburg. It became the top port in the Mediterranean. The international shipping community calls this the Piraeus miracle, but for Washington, this is a strategic disaster. The reason lies not in the water, but on the land. This brings us to the core of the issue. The United States is not pressuring Greece just because Chinese companies own a dock. The real threat is the connectivity that starts at Piraeus and shoots straight into the heart of Europe. China bought a gateway for the China-Europe Land-Sea Express route. Traditionally, goods from Asia destined for Central Europe have to sail all the way up to the ports of the North Sea. From Rotterdam or Hamburg, they are railed south to markets in Germany or Hungary. This route is long, expensive, and crowded. The Piraeus model flips the logistics map upside down. Ships unload in Greece. Containers are immediately loaded onto trains. These trains travel north through the Balkans, North Macedonia, Serbia, and Hungary to reach the center of the EU. This route shaves at least 7 to 10 days off the total transit time. In the world of just-in-time manufacturing, 7 days is a lifetime. It represents a massive reduction in inventory costs. But geopolitically, it represents a bypass of NATO's traditional control points. The crown jewel of this strategy is the Budapest-Belgrade Railway. This high-speed rail link, funded and built largely by Chinese technology, connects the port directly to the EU market. It turns the Balkans into a new logistical artery. For decades, the Balkans have been on the periphery of European development. Brussels viewed them as a problem. Washington viewed them as a buffer. China views them as a corridor. By revitalizing this railway network, Beijing is cementing its influence in countries like Serbia and Hungary. This creates a vertical axis of influence that cuts right through the southern flank of NATO. If China controls the port of entry and the rail line of distribution, it holds the lever on a significant portion of European trade. This is why US officials are sounding the alarm. They see a future where Central Europe becomes economically dependent on a logistics chain managed by Beijing. It undermines the transatlantic cohesion Washington has spent 70 years building. So, the United States decided to act. But their action came 15 years too late. Diplomatic envoys demanded Greece drive China out. They suggested the US should increase investment to balance China's influence. They floated ideas like the India-Middle East-Europe corridor. But to the Greeks, these proposals sounded like echoes in an empty room. The American counteroffer exists largely on paper. It is a promise of future investment, contingent on complex political approvals. It is bureaucratic, slow, and comes with political strings attached. Contrast this with the reality in Piraeus. The Chinese investment is steel and concrete. It is thousands of containers moving every single hour. It is 10,000 jobs that put food on the tables of Greek families. During the debt crisis, these jobs were a lifeline. It is important to note the reaction of the Greek labor unions. Traditionally militant and skeptical of privatization, the unions stabilized their relationship with COSCO because the bills are paid. The local economy in Piraeus has flourished. Tax revenues from the port have poured into the Greek treasury. So, when Washington says, "Kick them out and we will find something else," Greece asks a practical question. Where is your money? Where was your money in 2010? Replacing a proven operator with a vague promise is not a strategy. It is a gamble. And it is a gamble with the livelihoods of the Greek people. This is why the Greek government's response was so firm. They invoked the concept of friends in difficult times. This frames the relationship as a bond of loyalty, not just a transaction. While the West stopped purchasing Greek bonds, China bought them. While the West demanded austerity, China imported Greek olive oil. These actions created a reservoir of goodwill that American diplomats cannot drain with threats. Furthermore, the demand exposes a glaring double standard. The United States trades hundreds of billions of dollars with China every year. Germany's industrial giants are doubling down on investments in China. Yet, small nations like Greece are expected to sacrifice their interests for great power competition. The Greeks see this hypocrisy clearly. They understand that evicting COSCO would disrupt supply chains and destroy efficiency gains. The American replacement investors might never show up. The Piraeus checkmate is a lesson in realpolitik. Power in the 21st century is about infrastructure. It is about who builds the roads, digs the harbors, and lays the tracks. China has spent 2 decades building the hardware of global trade. The United States has spent that time fighting wars and focusing on financialized economies. Now, Washington is waking up to find the global economy being replumbed by its rival. The Port of Piraeus is the physical manifestation of this shift. It is a reality that cannot be undone by rhetoric. You cannot sanction a geography that saves shippers millions of dollars. Greece's refusal to bow to US pressure signals a maturing multipolar world. Middle powers will no longer blindly follow a superpower if it harms their national interest. They will choose partners based on performance, not ideology. They will choose the partner that shows up with cranes, not just complaints. The Land-Sea Express is operational. Trains are running from Athens to Central Europe. The volume of goods flowing through this corridor increases every year. NATO planners can look at the maps and worry, but the steel has already been laid. For the United States, Piraeus should serve as a wake-up call. If you want to win the hearts of nations, you have to offer a better deal. You have to build things. You have to be there when the house is burning, not just show up later to criticize the renovations. Until Washington can offer a tangible alternative to the Belt and Road, it will face rejection. Influence is earned through investment, not demanded through diplomacy. Greece has made its choice. It chose growth, stability, and loyalty, and in doing so, it shattered the illusion that allegiance can be commanded without reciprocity. Piraeus remains the dragon's head in Europe, and for now, the dragon is not going anywhere. This creates a new reality for the European Union. They must accept that a member state hosts the most efficient Chinese logistics hub in the world. They must integrate this reality rather than fight it. Because trade flows like water, it finds the path of least resistance, and right now, that path runs through the deep waters of Piraeus and onto the rails of the Balkans. This is the checkmate. The game has changed, and the pieces on the board have moved permanently. The question is no longer how to stop it. The question is how to live in a world where the East has built the gateway to the West. As we watch the trains depart from the Piraeus terminal heading north, we are watching history turn a corner. We are watching the end of a unipolar moment. Greece stands at the intersection of this era, and by saying no to the United States, they have asserted their right to navigate it on their own terms. The port is open, the ships are docking, and the world is watching. This is the reality of the Piraeus checkmate.